Hey, good Thursday morning, everybody. Welcome to the Volquest Mailbag Podcast. I'm Eric Kane with Awesome Price, Brent Hubbs, and Grant Ramey. It's a new year, but the same, dependable, reliable, awesome people over at Exterior Home Solutions. They can help you today. They've been local and trusted since 1999. Give them a call for a free estimate, 865-524-5888, or online at exteriorhomesolutions.com. We got a whole lot of questions to work through today, so we will go ahead and jump into that. We'll start with SS Stevo 06. After seeing the new clock rules in college football for a year, do you think they had that much impact on Tennessee and its offense, Brent Hubbs?
No, I don't. I think the impact on Tennessee's offense is they didn't play with great tempo, which again I thought that showed up in the game on Monday, Grant. And I think that's if you're a Tennessee fan, you like the fact that Tennessee didn't appear to have any trouble going fast at times against Iowa, which I think is a good sign moving forward because I think that tempo is so important to offensive success.
Yeah, I don't think it had any impact that I felt or noticed. I think Tennessee had its own problems, like Hub said. It was one thing if it was the same exact offense and the same exact personnel from 22 to 23, and you saw some kind of impact there. But such a different group, they moved to the different tempo, different pace. It was just a different group altogether. So I didn't see any impact there. I think it was more Tennessee's offense impacting itself.
Awesome Price. If it were to happen, how would Tennessee landing McMurray from Temple impact those freshman corners? Does one become portal risk after spring practice again if that were to happen?
I don't know. We'll see. Obviously, McMurray's not coming in until this weekend, so the window for anybody to go in the portal now will evaporate pretty quick, and so then you'll just be, seeing does anybody, take the leap after spring practice, and a lot of that will depend on do they want to go in this league. If they want to play in the SEC, they won't. They'll stay around and stick around. So. I guess for me, I think maybe long term it could impact. I don't think in the short term it does.
And then one more here from Steve 06. Says he knows this is probably a Monday night chat question, but AP, do you have any updates on Trey McNutt?
I do not.
Bump, AP bump.
All right, let's move on to Run CMG 22. Feels like one of the three of Laycock, Webb, and Nimrod will look to transfer out this spring. Do you have any thoughts on that, Brent Hubbs?
I mean, I'm not going to sit here and do chats and podcasts and guess on who's happy, who's not happy. I mean, we'll have any idea, right? I mean, what kind of spring do those guys have? Where are things? I know we live in a world of the transfer portal, but the number of people who over the last 2 years have said they were leaving, then ended up not leaving. You had a story written, they were gone, then they didn't leave. They said they were staying, then they did leave. I mean, this thing changes not daily. I mean, really almost by the hour. I mean, you can feel great about somebody at noon, and it's totally different at 3 o'clock, Austin. So, I mean, I don't think it's fair to speculate on who might be going where. I mean, all those guys are going to size up where they're at in spring practice and see if there are opportunities at all positions, what kind of opportunities they've got. Is there a better deal? What we have seen for the most part is the spring portal window is a lot more quiet than the winter portal window, because can you get somewhere in the summertime and really put yourself in a position to contribute at a new place? Probably not. And so we'll see. I mean, we'll see what happens in spring practice with the arrival of the new guys and how all that competition takes place.
Yeah, I guess, I will continue to reiterate that the current climate kind of environment is a lot like what I said in that chat late in the week or over the weekend when I did that kind of Monday night chat on Saturday. It's a lot like Men in Black. There's always somebody leaving, somebody going into the portal, going pro, doing this, going that, mad because of NIL, not mad because of NIL. And no one ever knows, no one ever sees. And, like literally small timers, big timers, you name it, there's always something going on behind the scenes that a lot of fans just don't see.
All right, let's move on to Forever Faithful. This is a good conversation really for the group, but Grant, we'll direct this to you. Nico, was he better than you thought, or was he about kind of what you thought he was going to be?
Stat wise, probably about what I thought he would be. I thought he was better than I expected at kind of being patient and being composed and kind of I don't know. He was sacked 6 times. The offensive line play was not great in front of him, and Iowa, it felt like, was after him the entire day. But it felt like he was never rushed. It felt like he just was kind of in control, and he took what he could get with his legs when he could get it. And obviously rushing for 3 touchdowns, that was a big deal. I thought he made some good throws. So he performed probably better than I thought he would. Stat line was about where I thought it would be.
Yeah, I think for me, it was just about the game management, the fact that he took care of the ball the way he did. He made quick decisions for the most part. I know when he watched it, there'll be some stuff that he wants back, but he also understood, hey, I've got a 14-point lead, or I've got a lead here. How does this team get beat? You make a catastrophic mistake, and I thought maybe he was a little cautious at times, with a couple things, but hey. I think that, if you're not sure, let your legs be a weapon. And there were times he did that. I was thoroughly impressed with just the moxie and the control that he played the game in. And I think, Austin, that's the foundation moving forward. There's a million things for him to work on. But I think when you talk about this offseason versus last offseason was about 3 or 4 throws, right? Like, it was a throw in the end zone, squeezing it in a tight window in the red zone that Joe made that everybody, went, wow, okay. This one's not about throws. This one's about how he controlled the football game. And I think that's a good starting point for this offense this offseason.
Yeah, having watched him play live in high school, like how he just kind of moves and looks around and all that, and, just kind of handles himself. The game is just as slow here as it was in high school. Like, you never felt like he was like head on a swivel, real jittery and fidgety. Like, he just he was like, okay, and okay, I'll take off and run. It was just like it was watching him play out there a year ago playing a high school ball. That was the biggest thing that stood out to me. He didn't change, even though the competition level went from Southern California, whatever classification he was in, to the SEC, Citrus Bowl.
For me, I think a lot of what Hub said, just in control of the offense. There were no pre-snap penalties. I thought that was huge. He did a great job of just taking what Iowa, gave him, right, and just went with it. And the passing number is very pedestrian through the air, but again, Tennessee had a really good run game behind them. Tennessee was set up with short field positions. Defense scored once, then you start at the 4-yard line on another time. So the defense helps you out a lot, and Nico just kind of took off and ran a couple of times. So I thought he did a really nice job of just kind of taking what Iowa gave him, and I thought he looked really, really good in that regard.
And I think for this offense, big picture moving forward for me is about where did they get their explosiveness from, and how do they get that back in the passing game? Because one of 2 things happened this year. Either one, the receivers had a hard time getting open.
I think it's both.
Okay? Or the quarterback couldn't get him the ball, or some teams schemed Tennessee differently, and you didn't have a guy 5 yards behind the defender, right? I mean, in 22, it was routes versus air at times with Jalen Hyatt, right? And so how do they get back to being more explosive vertically down the field? And I think that's an off-season study for the entire offense, from the head coach all the way through quarterback and receivers. What does that look like? How do you get back to the explosiveness we saw in year 1 and year 2 that went away in year 3 for the most part?
Let's go to Southerner 98. Said it's pretty clear that with Nico leading the way, the Vols have a window these next 2 years to win the SEC, to make the college football playoff. Much like how the NFL franchises go all in whenever these windows arrive, how confident are you that this coaching staff will do the same? All in meaning spend the money to go out and get true difference makers on offense and defensive lines at skill positions to give Nico the best opportunity to succeed. Austin Price, you want to take a stab at this?
Not really.
I will. In some ways, for 24, fans don't want to hear it. Tennessee has kind of gone all in. They went all in on the defensive line. They got all those guys coming back, okay? And those guys aren't coming back just for the love of the orange, right? I mean, that's not how this works in today's college.
I mean, the defensive line, more of them are coming back for that reason than the offensive. I feel like the offensive line's more what you're getting ready to say.
Well, but again, I mean, you had some guys who could all leave, and they could some of them could go pro, some of them could, and maybe their draft stock wasn't there, but all of them are making a choice to come back here, and Tennessee is helping them decide to come back, but by some NIL stuff, I'm sure. Okay,
Sure,
maybe it's not astronomical money, but the fact of the matter is nobody is coming back for an extra year, because they just want to put the jersey on one more time. That's kind of not how the game works these days. My point being, Tennessee, when you look at them in the line of scrimmage on the defensive side of the ball in 24, they're kind of all in. Okay. I mean, it's instead of going and spending for or try to get a Walter Nolan, you got Bryson Eason, Elijah Simmons, Amari Thomas, and Omar Norman Lott coming back, right? And so they're kind of there. They've got a bunch of veteran offensive linemen coming back. So in some ways, they've done it a little different in terms of going all in. But this is kind of a push to say, hey, let's help Nico the best we can, right? We're going to bring back as many veteran offensive linemen as we can get. We'll see if anybody else goes into portal here, right? Whether it's in this week or in the spring, we'll see how that plays out, and we'll see what they can finish with in the portal. But I don't think that you're going to see Tennessee go out and spend millions upon millions of dollars for, 2 or 3 transfers to come in for 12 games, right? AP, I mean.
Yeah, I mean, the Hurd kid from LSU, and again, we tape this on Wednesday. We'll see what he does. But a lot of people have got him paid to go to Ole Miss. If that ends up happening, that's going to be the definition of what the poster is talking about being all in. But in which I think will end one of two ways. It'll either end in confetti for Old Lane, or it'll end in a ball of flames for Lane. And I don't think there's any in between, right? And again, there's nothing wrong with their method. There's nothing wrong with saying, hey, we're going to take these 6 or 7 guys and go get it. But I'm going to tell you right now, Marion McDonald, I like T-Mac. Good, solid player. Did you notice much difference between T-Mac and Jordan Thomas at the Star? Because I didn't. Did you notice much between Wesley Walker and Andre Turrentine? I didn't.
Yeah. Now, I'll say this. They played the worst offense in college football.
They did, 100%.
Nobody's stretching the middle of the football field down the vertical field. I'm with you, though. I like Jordan Thomas. Okay, I do. I think Turrentine played pretty well in the Vanderbilt game, to be honest with you. I think he played better than some people want to say. What's going to be interesting to me, Grant, when you look at this is Tennessee's kind of, quote, all in is COVID guys for 24. Their all in for 25 may look a lot more like Lane's all in for 25 because of everything they're going to be losing off of this 24 team in the line of scrimmage. I think that they're going to have to be big bodied in the transfer portal going into the 25 season to be in a situation to, quote, capitalize on this window if Nico's what everybody thinks he's going to be.
I mean, the easy answer is you have to be all in every single portal cycle, every single season, because this is the Southeastern Conference and you're not going to get very many opportunities to not be all in and to stick around and get to do your thing. You have to be all in within your own context and what you're comfortable with. And Lane's all in is going to look different than Josh Heupel's all in. I mean, Jimbo's all in looked pretty good a couple of years ago when they had that number 1 recruiting class and they paid whatever they paid and they were going to supplant Bama, and that dynasty was over because Jimbo can recruit and he can beat Saban and all this stuff, and it blew up in A&M's face. I mean, you're gonna be all in however you feel like is the best way to build a program. And if this is the way Tennessee sees the best way they think to build a program, obviously it's a lot different than what Lane's done at Ole Miss, and we'll see which one works out. But you've got a really good quarterback that looked really good in his first start, the first full 4 quarters that we saw from him. You better be all in to build around him as much as you can, because he's not going to be here forever, and you want to take advantage of that. It is like a championship window. I don't know. It's a 12-team playoff field era. You better surround that guy with enough talent to be in that conversation moving forward.
You don't want to be the Titans. Their window. Go on.
That is true from this Titans fan that does not like the product on the field right now. Hey, when we come back, we got plenty more questions to get into. But first, let's get a quick word in from our friends over at Exterior Home Solutions.
Life happens, and damage to your home can be extremely stressful. That's why it's important to find someone who offers efficient, quality work with financing options. Exterior Home Solutions, they value not only family, but community. And they're who I call when life happens, and you should too.
As always, a big time thank you to our friends Exterior Home Solutions. for allowing us coverage here of the Volquest podcast. Going to get back into your questions from the mailbag here in just a moment, but got Grant Ramey on here, and we're going to do our Prize Picks segment. Last week, looking into the national championship, it is Washington versus Michigan. A whole lot to get excited about if you're a college football fan, and you can get even more excited by going to prizepicks.com, putting in that promo code VQ. And when you do that, you're going to get a 100% instant deposit match up to $100. By playing Prize Picks, it is so much fun. You can have so much fun doing it, winning 25 times your money back on this national championship game. All you have to do with Prize Picks, they have player projections, okay? And you're going to go between 2 to 6 players, and they're going to give you their projections, and all we're going to do is pick more than or less than those projections. So it's a whole lot of fun. And if you're watching on YouTube, this is kind of what it looks like right now as Grant Ramey and I are going to go through and make our picks. We're going to do the national championship picks here, but if you look at the top, you have all these different sports you can choose from, all these different, different categories you can choose from. So there's a wide variety over there at prizepicks.com. But Grant Ramey, let's start with the national title game. Washington, former Tennessee commits under Butch Jones, Michael Penix Jr., 297 in the hook, 297.5 passing yards. Will he go more than or less than?
He'll go more than, because I think he might be one of the best quarterbacks in the country. Might have deserved a little bit more Heisman hype than he got, even though he finished second. I mean, what he did against Texas, I don't know if they'll run open like they did against Texas, the receivers against Michigan like they did against Texas in the Sugar Bowl, but the passes, the dimes that he had in that game, the accuracy that he has was insane. So give me more than, because he almost had that at halftime against Texas. I think he could do it against Michigan as well.
Yeah, the way he started that semifinal game was incredible. We were listening and kind of watching it on our phones on the way back from Orlando, and in the first half alone, he had like pass plays of 35, 65, 70. I mean, you're right. So he almost got that at halftime, and that is their best offense. So I'm with you for sure. 297.5. Let's go more than there. Let's go to the other side. Michigan, J.J. McCarthy, 200 in the hook, 200.5 passing yards, more than or less than for the Michigan signal caller.
I think he's good, and I think he's a big part of the reason that Michigan is in the spot it's been in all season and is playing for a national title. But I didn't come away from the Rose Bowl as impressed with McCarthy as maybe I did with Penix in the Sugar Bowl. So I go less than on that 200.5. I think that's also it's less of an insult to J.J. McCarthy and more of a compliment to Blake Corum, because I was so impressed with what Blake Corum did as a whole against Alabama.
Yeah, I mean, I've never really been. I mean, you got to give him his due, right? I mean, he's quarterback of a national title team, an appearance here, and so it's not like he's a bad football player. But I've never really been all on the J.J. McCarthy hype train this year.
Right.
So I'm with you. I'm going to go less than 200 in the hook, and that brings us to Blake Corum. Man, he's a dynamic player. If McCarthy's going to have less than, you got to believe that Blake Corum in our Prize Pick projections here, 104.5, probably going to go more than, correct?
More than, for sure. I mean, he's tough. He's scored a billion touchdowns. Everybody replayed that jump cut a billion times where he just gets open in a second when it looks like nothing's there. There's 2 Alabama defenders in the hole, and he just jump cuts left, and he's off to the races. He's just so impressive. What he can do out of the backfield too, catching the football. I mean, this is rush yards over more than 104.5, but I mean, he can do it out of the backfield catching the ball too. He's just such a good football player. Very impressive with what he did in the Rose Bowl.
Yep, he really is. The last one we want to do here when we're looking towards the national title game, of course, that is going to be on January the 8th. Let's do rushing plus receiving yards. Let's stay with Blake Corum. So the rushing yards is 104.5, but if you tack on what they're projecting for him to have receiving yards, it's 116 in the hook. Grant, I just look at this man, dump offs, screens, swings. I just feel like this is an easy over, because worst case scenario, you dump him off and Blake Corum goes and makes somebody miss. You're talking about just like 12 yards more than what those rushing yard projection is. So I would go more than 116.5 for rushing and receiving for Blake Corum.
What was it, 4th and 3 or something on their own 33 there in the second half? They're down, I don't know if they're down 7 or 4 at that point, but it felt like this is your season hinges on this play, because it was insane kind of thinking about going for it on your own 33 in that situation, on that stage with your season on the line. And what they do, they dumped it off to Blake Corum out of the backfield, and he got 10, 12, something like that. He picked up the first down. It was a big play.
might have been more than 12. I can't remember the exact yardage. But if you're going with more than 104.5 rush yards alone, you're talking only 12 more yards receiving. So I think you can do that on one play. I think you'll be over more than 116.5 total yards for sure.
All right, so if you can see us right here, we have 4 players selected. You need to go between 2 to 6 players. We got more than Michael Penix in passing, less than J.J. McCarthy in passing. We got more than Blake Corum in rushing, and more than Blake Corum in rushing and receiving. Grant, I'm feeling good about this one, man. How about you?
I'm feeling good, but it's probably going to be terrible. But if you go down the list, it's exactly what I do every single week. I pick all mores and I throw one less in there just to make sure people are listening and paying attention. And then I probably go over 5 anyway, so we'll see.
We have never steered you wrong before. That is over PricePicks.com. Go to PricePicks.com, put in that promo code VQ, 100% instant deposit match up to $100. Again, that is all at PricePicks.com. Appreciate you guys for tuning in and playing that along with us here throughout the week. It's been a whole lot of fun. As always, really enjoy doing those prospect segments. Hope you guys are as well. We're going to get back to the mailbag portion of the podcast here in just a second. Do want to remind you guys about a proud sponsor of the show, and that is Factor. All right, holiday meals. It was kind of tough there the last month of December. Holidays are wrapped up, but 2024, it's not slowing down for anybody. You might be looking for meals that are nutritious, convenient, and can really maximize those jam-packed days. Factor is America's #1 ready-to-eat meal service. It's delivery service as well. It can fuel you up for breakfast, lunch, dinner. It's all chef-prepared, dietitian-approved, ready meals delivered straight to your door. You're going to save time. You're going to eat well. You're going to stay on track with your healthy lifestyle, all while tackling those extremely hard to-do lists. Too busy with things going on to cook, but you're sure you want to eat well. With Factor, you skip the extra trip to the grocery store, the chopping, the prepping, the cleaning up. Factor is nutritional. It's quality. It's never frozen meals, ready in just 2 minutes. I've told you guys about Factor sending me some meals. They send it to me, never frozen. Seriously, pop it in the microwave, 2 minutes. I eat it, I throw it away. It's as simple as that. So many different variations. The variety is great. It tastes so good, and it's good for you as well. You can get it all there at factormeals.com. Special occasion meals as well. You can level up to the Gourmet Plus options, prepared to perfections by chefs, ready to eat in record time. You can enjoy premium ingredients like truffle butter, asparagus, and stuff like that. It's all calorie conscious as well. Over the stressful time, holidays just wrapping up, you want to get back into the gym. Calorie conscious times, they taste great as well. So you can check it out over at Factor's Meal. Head on over to Factor's Meal and put in this promo code. It is VQ50, promo code VQ50, and you're going to get 50% off at Factor Meals. That is factormeals.com, promo code VQ50 for Factor Meals, VQ50 for 50% off. Go take advantage of this today. It is fantastic. You will thank me later. That's a promo code VQ50 at Factor Meals. As always, thank you so much to our friends Exterior Home Solutions. Got a lot of home renovations here in the new year. Give them a call. That number was 865-524-5888 for a free consultation, free estimate. All right, let's go to Who is JJ Peterson? Love the screen name, by the way. Was backing off of Evan Stewart more to do with Brew's return, culture fits, content with young guys, or other? On the surface, it seemed like a perfect fit. Family connection, young elite player, multiple years left. Austin.
I don't think they really backed off. I think they did some due diligence early. And here's the thing about college coaches. They change their mind like the wind. And it's this way, it's that way. And so, when a lot of those national guys were putting out there a lot about Evan Stewart, I just kind of let it dangle a little bit. I mean, I downplayed. I said it was going to be a long shot. But I didn't want to just poo-poo on it because coaches change their minds so frequently, Hubbard. Like, you just never want to lock yourself in on one particular. But from a Tennessee coaching perspective, I don't think they ever went too far down that rabbit hole. I think they did a little due diligence and realized that wasn't the path they wanted to go, and thus it never really materialized outside of that.
Well, and here's the other thing you had. Everybody wants to compare apples, Brew McCoy to Evan Stewart. It's not the comparison. You also welcomed in
Chris Bradley.
Chris Brazel. You also welcome in Mike Matthews, who, by the way, you got to see practice for almost 2 weeks.
Yep.
And you got to watch Braylon Staley practice for 2 weeks. And so maybe you figure, you know what? I like my room. I like what my talent level is. I mean, I know everybody wants to accumulate a wealth of riches, right? I'm like, okay, it's fast. Let's get every fast guy out there in the portal in the receiver room. And now all of a sudden you got 12 receivers. Well, what's the point? You're not going to play all 12 of those guys anyway. So maybe that factored into part of it as well. You know, Stewart's not in a hurry. He wants to see a bunch of teams and see where it's at. And I think that gave Tennessee more time to dive into, you know, what kind of fit is he? What's their due diligence on kind of what the last 2 years have been for him? You know, as well as how do they like their current room and the future of that room over the course of the next year, year and a half. I mean, I think all those things factored into a decision. It's not just a simple one equals one. It's not a 1-to-1 ratio is what I'm trying to say.
What you've seen here in this recruitment in particular, who came out as the perceived leader and thought to be the team to beat? Alabama, right? Well, Alabama, you know, started to do a little due diligence. Well, then guess what? The representation leaked it out there. Alabama's team to beat. Boom. And Alabama said, yeah, not so much. Tennessee, same type thing, right? Leaked out, perceived team to beat or whatever. Wanted to see Nico play. He's super impressed by Nico. And no. So, I mean, like, you've kind of seen the same episode here multiple times. It's kind of like Grant watching Andy Griffin.
Speaking of Grant, let's go to this one from Mr. Rocky Top Rowdy. What's the situation with DJ Jefferson? Why did Rick put in the walk-ons in before Jefferson against Norfolk State?
Oh, gosh. I don't know. It seems like the writing's on the wall with DJ Jefferson. Great kid. Great guy. It seems like he's always full of energy, and he's always, you know, the fact that he's never played has never affected his personality and what he's like in Pratt Pavilion and all this stuff. He seems like a great teammate and a great guy to be around. Whatever reason, he's not in the rotation. He's never been in the rotation. He had that episode in October where he wasn't technically suspended, but he basically served a suspension and he came back and he got with the team. But if you're not playing by now, it feels like the writing's on the wall. You're not going to be here long. It's not going to be a big long-term thing. And Rick has said himself, if you come here in college basketball, basically, if you don't play in the first 2 years, you better be working on your replacement because that guy's probably going to transfer. And it feels like it's headed that way because he's not part of the rotation. It feels like Cameron Carr came in and he's kind of been ahead of him from the time that he got to campus. So good player. I think he'll be good somewhere. I don't know if it's going to be at Tennessee. I don't know if he's going to make an impact here and ever get in the rotation, but it feels kind of clear that he's not part of it right now and he's not going to be anytime soon.
Grant, did he play in Italy? Did he play much on the Italy trip?
Yeah, he did. And Rick has always been in his corner pretty heavily and liked his future and his upside and stuff. But the thing with Rick is he's going to match your investment and he's going to match the work that you put in. I think Freddie DeLeon has seen some of that with his time on campus. And you can watch a practice and tell who Rick likes because that's the guy he's attacked. He's attacked Jonas and he's attacked Tobey and he's attacked Dalton and he goes after guys. The guys he doesn't go after is the guys you worry about, and he hasn't gone after Freddie in a while, and we've never seen him go after DJ Jefferson. And I think he likes DJ, he likes his upside and his potential. But if you're not going to work at the level he wants you to work at, if you're not going to play defense, if you're not going to do this and that, there's some non-negotiables that he talks about, and if you don't meet those things, then you're probably not going to be part of the rotation.
Let's go to Wiremaker here. He says rapid fire football questions. So, you know, anyone that a player comes to mind, just kind of shout it out here amongst the four of us. Fastest player on the football team would probably be Squirrel or Dylan Sampson, correct?
Squirrel, I would think.
I'll go Sampson.
Strongest player, Elijah Simmons?
Definitely would be right up there, yeah.
Okay. Funniest player, AP?
Cooper Mays.
Meanest player, I would say Cooper Mays on the field.
I'll go James Pierce.
No, it's not bad. Let's see here. Most likely to be a future coach?
Jackson Lampley.
Yeah,
and that's because that's what he wants to do. And I'm not saying that because he can't. That's nothing about skill level or talent, whatever. His long-term career
Likes
goal to
football.
be a coach. He loves football.
Yeah.
Wants to coach. Would love to GA here if the opportunity ever presented itself.
Player you most likely want on your side in a bar fight?
James Pierce.
Yeah, I'm rolling James Pierce, and I probably want Javante Spraggan standing beside him.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And then I'll be in the back. I'll be in the back instigating it. It's what I'll be doing.
You want East St. Louis.
Player most likely to benefit by moving to the other side of the ball. 2 names come up for me, AP. Shandavian Bradley and then Jeremiah's Hurd from this last recruiting class.
I'll go Omari Thomas, the best offensive tackle on the roster who doesn't play it.
And then player with the most interesting recruiting story, if there's one that kind of comes to mind.
Nothing comes to mind.
Okay.
Who knew we were doing superlatives here on this Mailbag podcast?
I know. I like it. I like it
Most
a lot.
likely to end up in a movie.
Vol Catfish wants to know, Brent, is Karik good enough, talented enough to start a guard next season?
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I know that Glenn Ellerby's a big fan of his, but he's got to stay healthy if he's going to be that. He's got to be more physical. We'll see. I mean, again, that's I don't have enough evidence to say here now. I mean, what little bit he played, I guess he was okay, but I don't think he was by any means like, hey, there's your guard, right? I don't know what's going to happen at that guard position. Assuming Spraggins is back, I don't know what's going to happen to that guard position on the other side.
Sam Smith, 2233. This is for Grant. The undefeated Fighting Land Shark Black Bear Rebels come to the Food City Center at Thompson-Boling Arena on Saturday. So with that being said, what's the scouting report and the matchups Tennessee can take advantage of?
Matthew Morrell is at Ole Miss for the 9th consecutive season, it feels like. Feels like ever since Rick's been there, he's been coaching against Matthew Morrell. Here's what you need to know about Ole Miss. They're 13-0, best start in Ole Miss basketball history. Chris Beard's a really good basketball coach. Probably not going to be there very long because he's going to win a lot of games and bounce to the next better basketball program that's kind of comes and tries to poach him. But I think they started at like 82 in the KenPom ratings, and they won 13 games, and they're all the way up to number 79. I think that's what you need to know about Ole Miss. Like, they're a good story. Tennessee, it's a home game. Tennessee should win this basketball game probably pretty comfortably. Chris Beard's a good basketball coach, but I don't know how good they are based on they've won 13 games, but I don't think their schedule is very good, their strength of schedule, because they haven't climbed in any of the ratings. Yeah, they're ranked, and that's a different story than kind of what the analytics say about a basketball team. But it's a good story. It's a good start. Chris Beard's going to do good stuff there, but Tennessee should win that basketball game.
Sloppy Ball wants to know what needs to happen for Tennessee to be in the playoff next year. Make the case for Tennessee to go 10-2 or better. And again, that's from Sloppy Ball. Brent, there's a couple big road matchups that are huge early in the football season at Oklahoma, at Arkansas. Of course, you got NC State there in week 2. Tennessee needs to win the month of September if it wants to be obviously looking forward to a 10-win season or a college football playoff berth.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a couple things within the team that you got to look for beyond the schedule, right? They've got to get themselves solidified in the secondary. You know, what does that look like with Gabe Judy Lolly gone? Is that a plug and play with McCoy? What do they look like at the safety position? How does that shake out? They're going to have to stay healthy back there. They're going to be athletic, but they're going to be young with their depth. So where is that at? I think Tyree West has got to be – he doesn't have to do what he did on Monday, but Tyree West has got to show up consistently. They've got to have somebody on the opposite side of James Pierce on defense. And then offensively, for me, it's about finding someone, Austin, who everybody in the secondary is scared to death of, vertically down the field. And 2, what's their answer at tight end? I mean, Holden Stays may be as important as anybody is on this team in terms of transfers coming in because of how important the tight end is for the run game as well as what they do in the passing game. So they got to answer that question for me on offense.
Yeah, I mean, not just Holden Stays, but Ethan Davis. You play 2, right? I mean, you could alter it and just play 1, but with the tempo you play at, I think they'd love to rotate 2. That's what they normally do. And so Ethan Davis has got to be, as good as advertised as well. So it's not just Stays coming in from Notre Dame, who, again, we talked about this, and I joked, he's used to run a play every 5 minutes. Now he's running a play every 4 seconds. It's a different deal. but I think they both have to be really good. So there's just no depth behind them. I mean, like it just kind of is what it is. So I think both of them have to step up. I think get the nail on the head. And you're right, having someone on the outside or in the slot that opposing teams fear. There was nothing about this receiving core that this receiving core was 2007. It was Lucas Taylor. It was Austin
Rogers.
Austin Rogers. It was
Gerald Jones. Gerald Jones.
But he wasn't one of the starters on that team though, was he?
I have no idea.
Wasn't Briscoe a part of that group too?
Gerald Briscoe.
Isaiah Briscoe.
Josh
Briscoe.
Briscoe Darling.
Briscoe Darling.
I call him Gerald Briscoe. That's a wrestler from the 60s.
You just combine two names.
We do what we want here on the Volquest podcast. Second question here from Sloppy Vol. Do you see Tennessee running Nico next year as much as they did in the bowl game with the backup quarterback situation for 12 games? Grant, Jake Merklinger, of course, is the quarterback of this class. You got, you've got, gosh, I'm blanking on his name right now. There we go. Yeah. But what I liked about that game plan was, man, those first two touchdowns, it was a sweep, and then it was a draw. They blocked it up well, looked good. Do you think Tennessee will be as aggressive with that with Nico? And not just Nico going and making something happen, but calling design runs for Nico next season, knowing that there's not a whole lot behind him, at least to start out?
I would pick my spots a little bit more because the number in total was 12, 13 rushes. He got sacked 6 times. I mean, not all those rushes obviously are design runs and stuff they're calling for him. A lot of it's just him ducking down and going himself. I wouldn't want him running 13 times a game for 12 games when he's as important as he is to this football team and to the future of this football program. And not only that, because of the depth as well. I mean, Tennessee's pretty blessed with Hendon Hooker and Joe Milton, and then Joe Milton and Nico the last couple of years in terms of depth. You don't really have that in 2024, and he's really good. And he's impressive as a runner, I think, because he kind of, I don't know, he reads the football field well, and he kind of makes himself small, and he can duck through places, and he knows where he's going and how to do it. But at the same time, I don't want him sacked 6 times, and I don't really want him rushing 13 times over a 12-game season because of that quarterback depth. I don't believe in it right now because it's just not there.
I think he's got to go in big games, and as Grant said, pick your spots, much like they did with Hendon Hooker in 22. I mean, Hendon Hooker ran the ball a good bit against Florida. He ran it a good bit against Alabama. He didn't run it very much against Chattanooga or against UT Martin and some other places where you didn't have to have him. So I just think you have to be careful with him. But in big games, I think you got to turn him loose. You got to go play your game. You got to do what you can to win the football game.
Skylar H356 wants to know, AP, which incoming true freshman will be at spring practice? Might be easier just to name off the ones that you know for sure won't be at spring practice because there's already 15 that are here right now.
Yeah, everybody that was here for the bowl game, and then you add in Peyton Lewis. You add in the 2 kids from Lipscomb, Edwin Spillman and Caleb Beasley, because they have gotten creative. They're able to graduate early. They'll be able to be here for spring practice. They graduate in like March. It's like this weird deal. They've kind of figured out a way and a path, and they'll be here for spring practice in March. So it's kind of like it's basically everybody that was here for bowl practice. The biggest thing is not just necessarily the newcomers; it's more so the transfers to be able to get Jermod McCoy, Chris Brazel, Jacoby Cowan, all those guys here for bowl practices, or not bowl practice, but spring practice is big.
We'll stay with you, AP. This is from Grover Levy. Who's the better quarterback prospect, Jake Merklinger, George McIntyre, Jared Curtis, and how likely is it that Tennessee ends up with all 3? Of course, that's a 24, 25, and 26.
They're all really good. I'm not picking sides of anybody. They all kind of have different games. George, I think, has got an incredible amount of upside. His height is a real asset. He does got to have to get bigger. He's going to have to put on weight. Like, that's an important thing for George. I do think it hurts him that he plays basketball because he's never able just to kind of dive into the weight room for a few months and throw on some weight. But I'm sure his dad Matt will be feeding him peanut butter milkshakes as much as he can over there if he's able to do that. So Can you land all three? I mean, I'm not going to discount it. It's probably not super likely, but I think that since he's able to land McIntyre in the next 2 to 3 weeks, then obviously that gives you the first two in that domino, and then we'll see what happens with Jared Curtis.
Let's go to Pine here. Grant Hyatt had a great offseason, had a great season. Wright had a great offseason, had a great season. Grant Ramey, are you predicting anyone to do what they did this offseason that could translate into a prosperous 2024?
I mean, Dylan Sampson's no secret, but I think he could take a pretty sizable leap because of what we've seen in games where he's got a lot of touches, more touches than he got for most of the season. I mean, you look back at that UTSA game, what do you have, 130-something rushing against Iowa in the Citrus Bowl, supposedly a pretty good defense. You look at the numbers, they didn't give up a lot of rush yards and stuff like that. For him to go for 20 for 133, something like that. So it's not like a secret name, it's not a new name, anything like that, but for him to take that first running back spot and those number of carries and be that productive, he could be 1,000-yard rusher like Jalen Wright was. I think he could be a similar, jump that Jalen Wright had between 22 and 23 for Dylan Sampson, 23, 24. I don't know, Hubs, can I get away with a Dylan Sampson name?
Yeah, I'm reflecting on George McIntyre gaining weight, and I'm thinking of Aunt B throwing that butter on those mashed potatoes when Barney was trying to be
just hope George doesn't get the hiccups.
That's exactly right.
What kind of butter was that, Brent? What kind of butter?
It was not Irish butter. It was just regular butter. So I'm going to go with two guys. Great. I'll let you get away with that, but I'll go with two guys. One, a position and a guy. I think Caleb Herring, big off season for him, strength-wise, weight-wise. I think he can make a jump. So I would put him in that category, even though you got James Pierce, but you're looking for somebody else there to kind of complement. I think he's got a chance to make a big stride this offseason. And Austin, I think you need somebody in that offensive line who's going to be a second-year player, right? One of these guys to make a jump, whether it's Sham or Aiden Bustle or somebody in that group has to take a real stride this offseason, either for real playing time as a starter or to give some quality depth and quality backup.
Yeah, I mean, Aiden Bustle is kind of a forgotten man in my mind. Like, and I think he's someone who could, with a strong, basically he's been doing nothing but, getting his body right. I mean, like, it's not like he's played any this year. So, like, you would hope that he's kind of ready to take that huge step this winter, this spring. Bison Lang, Sham Umarov, two of those guys need to be quality depth a year from now. And I think one of them should be trying to say, hey, I want to be the left guard. They need a few of those guys, whether it be Sham wanting to bump inside, Aiden Bustle playing guard, Bison Lang, go to Glenn Ellerby and say, man, I want that spot. I'm going to work my butt off this spring. Let's go do this. I want to be the left guard. Because Jackson Lampley's going to want to get it. Andre Carrick's going to want to get it. And so, like, this is going to be, if you're a young guy and you got any kind of oomph, to you and competitiveness, man, you got to go take it from those old guys, because those older guys aren't going to just go, yeah, it's yours, go ahead. They're going to be out there thinking, hey, this is my chance to, have that Ollie Lane type year that Ollie had this past year.
And there's nobody, I'm sorry, Aaron, there's nobody really coming out of the last 2 weeks of the season on the offensive line with more confidence than Jackson Lampley should have. Okay. Well, I mean, just for the fact that he played in Tennessee, I mean, they were successful running the football. I'm sure there's a million things he can do better, no doubt. But I mean, when you're waiting your turn and then you go play and you succeed in playing and your team succeeds, it gives you a ton of confidence going into the offseason. And he thinks he's got, and he should feel like he's got a real shot to be the guard next year.
Well,
so
he looks at Ollie. Ollie's a great just example for him.
Yeah, I mean, he can look at that and go, all right, I'm gonna go get that. I'm gonna go be that guy right now. So he should walk into this offseason with a ton of confidence.
I said this on my Locked On Balls podcast. I mean, he gave up 6 sacks. Dylan Sampson, the running backs had some issues there as well. But you look at it from one perspective, it's like, man, that offensive line struggled. And it did in pass protection. It did. But then you also blocked for 232 rushing yards. And you blocked that with Jackson Lampley at right guard. So I'm 100% with you, Hubs. Like, if I'm Jackson Lampley, I'm feeling really good about myself heading in this offseason. Also, AP, of note, I thought it was I think it's a good thing. I think he's more of an inside guy. But Aiden Bustle also in practice right now getting some reps at tackle. Talk about one of those second-year guys, kind of a swing guy potentially. He's kind of a forgotten guy, but a guy that potentially this spring, whether it's a tackle or guard, could maybe step up and kind of be in this conversation of taking that second year leap?
Again, you need 1-2 of those guys to really take a step forward, because I didn't feel like Tennessee had great quality depth on the O-line. They need to see some of those players kind of, build themselves up to a certain point. Because, I mean, let's face it, Tennessee's going to turn, and whether, Lampley will be gone after next year. So will Cooper. So will Spraggs. So will John Campbell, Gerald Mincy, if he's still here. You need some of those players to really take a huge step, because they need to play some next year. That way, when the calendar turns to 25, it's not such a, oh my gosh, there's nothing in the room.
Yeah. By the way, I would throw Cam Seldon into that offseason intrigue as well. A guy who's still learning the position, but you saw the talent. You understand why Jerry Mack pretty high on him. I think this is could be a big offseason for him to make a big step, just in understanding how to be a running back at the college football level.
My pick
AP
would be.
Sorry, Eric. I think AP. Did you say he's a bigger kid than people expected? Have I heard you say that about Cam Seldon before?
Well, he's just a bigger back.
He's thicker. The kid's thick. I saw him on the field at the Citrus Bowl. What was it, Monday morning? Man, he's a
big kid. Athlete. Like 6'1", 6'2", and well over 200 pounds. He was the biggest kid in the room when he got on campus. He and Khalifa Keith both are physically further along than any of Small, Wright, and Sampson at this point in their career.
The player I would throw in there would be Arion Carter. Tennessee needs him to be a player next year for sure. So a big offseason to get healthy, of course, and then to continue to progress. Let's do one more. We got this is kind of a long one. This is from Breesy. While the play calling wasn't necessarily awful this year, it was not to the level that it was in 2022 with Golesh. 2 questions. 1, does this have absolutely nothing to do with the play caller and everything to do with the offensive personnel, Milton, limited wide receivers, and it should be closer to that of 2022 with Nico and hopefully an improved personnel panel? Or 2, will Josh Heupel give the play calling duties to Joey Halzle? Said he may have been mistaken, but didn't Heupel call plays in 21, then gave it to Golesh the following season? Should we expect that to repeat with Joey Halzle? Brent Hubbs.
I mean, I don't know that it was play calling. I mean, I think you're playing to your personnel and what you're comfortable doing and what you can do. I mean, what's the old saying? Jalen Hyatt wasn't walking through the door. He wasn't walking in the locker room to get ready. I mean, Austin just talked about the receivers, and they're not bad. I mean, Ramel Keaton did not have the year I thought he would have. Brew McCoy losing him for 7 games was significant. 8 games was significant. I think again, I said this earlier, I think it's about personnel. And then I think Josh Heupel and Joey Halzle had to look at, our team's playing you different. And what's your counter to that? We talked about this, odd fronts. How does that affect the run game? When you look at teams that have kind of slowed the run game down, they played more odd fronts than they have even fronts. What does that mean? I don't know. I'm not a football coach, but with teams with 3-man fronts seem to stop the run game better than some teams with 4-man fronts. Got to figure that part out. And then were teams really playing you different in the back end? Or was that your inability to get open with those guys? Was that the quarterback's inability to make quick decisions and all those types of things? This scheme, Austin, has gotten people open and has been successful for a long time at a lot of places. It's not like somebody looked at them after the 22 season and went, damn, they're really good on offense. We better spend all summer figuring out how to stop it. No, that's not going to happen. Everybody's been trying to figure it out for a decade.
And I don't think it's the play calling either. I think it's more the personnel. But you're going to find out, right? Like if Nico's all of a sudden out there first 3 games of the season and it looks a lot like what it did with Hendon, everybody's going to go, wait a minute. We wasted last year. We get what are we doing here? Like, I mean, that's what we're going to be. And I think a lot of it is the personnel. I mean, like, no offense to the receivers that played in the bowl game a few days ago. And but let's face it, in 2007, Josh Briscoe, Quentin Hancock, Austin Rogers, and Lucas Taylor were not Meacham, Brett Smith, and Jason Swain, right? Just like this group, good solid players aren't. Cedric Tillman and, Brew McCoy was not there for most of the year, and Jalen Hyatt. So, I mean, like, I think when you add different personnel, you improve yourself at receiver. If we get most of the offensive line, back going again, then I think it does change things for Nico early next year.
All right, as always, thank you guys so much for sending in your questions for us here on the Mailbag Podcast every Thursday here at Volquest.com. Big thank you to our friends Exterior Home Solution for being the presenting sponsor of this show. If you need roofing, siding, windows, or garage, contact Exterior Home Solutions today. It's at 865-524-5888, or you can always visit them online at exteriorhomesolutions.com. For Austin Price, Brent Hubbs, Grant Ramey, I am Eric Kane. We'll talk to you on the General's Quarters over there at Volquest.com.